Bismarck. Yes, they had some differences in foreign policy, but what were those differences, and why were they such influential people during the 19th century? To begin, let's start with Metternich. Metternich was foreign minister for Austria from 1809 until 1848. He was a big symbol of conservatism in the first half of the 19th century. Being the foreign minister of Austria, he played a very crucial role at the Congress of Vienna by being the Austrian delegate to help settle the disputes among the great powers.
He believed that unions between the monarchs is the basis of the policy which must be followed to save society from total ruin, as stated by Metternich in his Political Confession of Faith in 1820. Metternich was guided by the principle of legitimacy, meaning that to restore peace and order in Europe, it is necessary to restore the legitimate monarchs who preserve traditional institutions. Legitimacy was the divine right to rule, given to a ruler by the power of God, according to conservatives. During the new arrangement of territory at the Congress of Vienna, Metternich believed it to have avoided great danger by creating a balance of powers, because a stable Austria under one ruler meant no dangerous ideals like nationalism getting into the heads of the German people. In his eyes, the monarchy was a good institution.
In 1815, to maintain the new conservative order, he espoused the principle of intervention, by which he meant that the great powers had the right to intervene militarily in other countries in order to crush revolutionary movements against the legitimate rulers. In order to maintain this principle, he used spies to search and crush liberal or nationalistic plots. The Carlsbad Decrees and his idea of intervention helped Metternich and the cooperative German rulers maintain the conservative status quo. In an economic aspect of government ruling, Metternich did not approve of the laissez-faire system that was so prevalent during the Industrial Revolution. Free market, he believed, would negatively impact Austrian markets because the government was not involved in this process.
Metternich and Alexander I proclaimed a principle of active intervention to maintain all autocratic regimes whenever they were threatened. Metternich conservatism battled against liberal political change. His policies dominated in Austria, the Italian peninsula, and the entire German Confederation, which the peace settlement of Vienna had called into being. It was supported by Russia and to a lesser extent by the Ottoman Empire. Metternich had a pessimistic view of human nature, which he believed was prone to error, excess, and self-serving behavior. According to him, strong government was necessary to protect society from the baser elements of human behavior, and liberalism was responsible for the generation of war and suffering. To summarize Metternich's achievements, the Concert of Europe created the Holy Alliance between Austria, Russia, Prussia, and France to keep the balance of power in Europe. He joined the Fourth Coalition and defeated France. He expanded the Habsburg Empire, created the Carlsbad Decrees, which was press censorship and close supervision of the universities, and he aimed to suppress all liberal anxiety against the conservative governments of Germany. All of these events led to the creation of the German Confederation.
The Congress of Vienna was a meeting of the Quadruple Alliance and Restoration France to compose a general peace settlement that began after the defeat of Napoleon's France in 1814. It agreed to the restoration of the Bourbon dynasty and to raise a number of formidable barriers against renewed French aggression. The First Peace of Paris gave France the boundaries it possessed in 1792, and France didn't have to pay war reparations. The Congress stopped potentially explosive issues from getting out of hand in France, such as the Poland issue that could have led to war or further hostility, but it was handled with extreme care by a group of very capable diplomats. The Congress was able to establish long-term stability in Europe, however there were some criticisms. Nationalists were not always happy with the established borders that served to maintain the balance of power, rather than unifying a given group that shared the same language and culture. Overall, the Congress of Vienna was a success. It created enough powers of similar strength and influence that none of them could go too far without being overwhelmed by a coalition of the others. Also, it mediated numerous tensions and conflicting interests through peaceful negotiations. Led by Metternich, the conservative powers used intervention and repression as they sought to prevent the spread of subversive ideas and radical changes in domestic politics. The formation of the Holy Alliance was the first step in this crusade against the ideas and politics of the dual revolution. Through the German Confederation, Metternich issued the Carlsbad Decrees in 1819, which upheld Metternich's conservatism and required the German states to root out subversive ideas and eliminate any liberal organizations.
Otto von Bismarck was another great leader during the 19th century of the Prussian Empire, lasting from November 9, 1873 to March 20, 1890. Bismarck aimed to expand Prussia to include the German states and to achieve power and control of northern and southern Germany. He wanted to preserve Metternich's conservatism and ancient regimes while stopping the spread of socialism. Both Bismarck and Metternich wanted to instill peace throughout Europe by having an absolute monarch and maintaining conservatism. However, Metternich wished to suppress liberalism while Bismarck wanted to simply appease the liberals. Ultimately, Bismarck managed to unify Germany and capture Louis Napoleon. Austria was defeated in 1866, along with France a few years later in 1871. To appease and work with the liberal middle class, Bismarck created a social security plan and granted popular participation with universal male suffrage. Bismarck realized that nationalism was not necessarily hostile to his conservative, authoritarian government. He saw that the German middle class could be led to prefer national unity under conservative leadership rather than a long, hard battle for liberal institutions. His diplomacy of realpolitik and powerful rule at home gained him the nickname the Iron Chancellor.
Like Metternich, Bismarck wanted to expand his empire and keep it safe under a monarch's rule. Bismarck and Metternich were conservative, and they both didn't like socialists. But whereas Metternich was absolutely terrified that nationalism would tear apart Austria, Bismarck decided to adopt some nationalistic ideas in order to expand his empire. Bismarck made up a constitution after the unification of Germany that was a compromise by creating a radical government that could satisfy the liberals. This constitution allowed there to be a legislature that was voted for by male suffrage people, but yet kept most of the power of the country with the emperor. By doing this, it led to middle-class acceptance of the monarchy. Being able to work with the liberals separated Bismarck from Metternich. By contrast, Bismarck wanted to encourage nationalism. Before Bismarck, Germany was not a unified country. Instead, it was split up into many little independent states. Bismarck felt that all ethnic Germans should be part of one country. He wanted to awaken their feelings of nationalism so that he could unify them. This would allow Germans to be ruled only by other Germans, and it would also make Germany a much more powerful force in European politics.
Both Metternich and Bismarck were strong politicians who were against revolutions and defeated France, but had different methods of achieving their goals, with Bismarck being able to appease liberals with changes in Prussian constitutions and Metternich sticking to old conservative institutions.
As said by Bismarck himself, the great questions of the day will not be settled by means of speeches and majority decisions, but by iron and blood.